Hey, this is your girl Desiree, and welcome back to the Players Club. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks. What is BDSM and what does BDSM stand for? There are many variations of what the initials BDSM stand for, but the most widely used is bondage, discipline, sadism, and masochism. And when grouped together, BDSM springs from the terms bondage and discipline, D, dominance and submission, Ds, and sadism and masochism, and describes forms of sexuality that incorporate restraint, pressure, sensation, training, and elements of both erotic and non-erotic power exchange. Generally, it is used as an umbrella term for a consenting adult relationship that involves a power exchange. For example, in a dominant-submissive relationship, the dominant person holds authority over the submissive person. Because of the inequality of these roles, it is important that both adults have discussed, negotiated, and consented to their defined roles. Bondage is any kind of item used to restrain any part of a sub-slave's body. Most commonly used restraints are toy handcuffs, rope, or some type of quick release or Velcro closing restraint. Discipline is the actions taken by a dominant to teach and prevent a submissive from doing something that is in no way an act of willful disobedience. Discipline does not normally include physical punishment. Punishment is when a submissive or slave has purposely been disobedient and has knowingly disobeyed a command or done something incorrectly brought on by an act of defiance. In cases like these, punishment will be administered to ensure that the submissive or slave is aware that disobedience has consequences, and it generally is not a process that any of the parties involved enjoys. I will touch on this more in depth later in this book. Sadism is a source of pleasure that results from inflicting pain or humiliation or watching pain or humiliation inflicted on a submissive slave. Masochism is a source of sexual, mental, emotional gratification, or the tendency to derive sexual, mental, emotional gratification from being physically or emotionally abused. BDSM is a sexual preference and a form of personal relationship. It is also extremely mental, but even more so to those that practice it in situations other than sexual scenes. Interest in BDSM can range from one-time experimentation to a lifestyle. A dominant has to be very careful and know his submissive extremely well in order not to do any lasting mental damage if the sub is deep into submission. Many people practice some element of BDSM in their sexual lives without even necessarily being aware of it. They may think of Sampam as that sick stuff that people do with whips and cattle prods and stuff, yet still blindfold one another from time to time, or tie one another down and break out the whipped cream. All of these things are BDSM. BDSM is not necessarily hardcore sadomasochism. It can be remarkably subtle and sensual and soft. Pinning your partner to the bed and running silk or ice cubes or rabbit fur over your lover's body also qualifies as BDSM, specifically of a variety called sensation play. BDSM is not abuse. An abuser doesn't take the time to learn safe play, and an abuser certainly doesn't respect limits. Not taking no for an answer, not honoring a safe word, or taking advantage of the unequal power relationship that exists between dom and sub are forms of abuse. While these relationships do not fit into the traditional mold, they are between consenting adults. If one person withdraws their consent, it could become abuse. But that can also happen in a vanilla relationship as well. To gauge how a scene is going, those in the community may use safe words to check in with each other. Green means that everything is going well, so whatever activity is going on can continue or get more intense. Yellow means to slow down or take a break. Red means stop immediately, This is where knowledge comes in handy and trust is essential. Never play or submit to anyone that you do not completely trust with that power. Normal is defined as conforming to the standard or the common type, usual, not abnormal, regular. Normality is an idealistic state of living, of existing. Since normality varies from person to person, culture to culture, and decade to decade, any recognized standard will always be whatever practices and lifestyles the current mainstream society decides amongst the confirmed members of each class. To be normal, you have to think one person's morality is different from another. So that would make what you consider normal different from me or even your neighbor's version of normal. If we view BDSM from the viewpoint of the current world's population, then no, it is not considered normal. Think about the sexual practices in the BDSM lifestyle: bondage, sampam, poly, swinging, etc. Mainstream culture usually follows some type of religious teachings: Jewish, Catholic, Muslim, Buddhist, etc. that teach sex is only supposed to be used for procreation. They frown on anything outside their strict religious codes. They consider bondage or flogging abuse. But people that practice these and other forms of sexual torture within the confines of the BDSM lifestyle get heightened pleasure and love the bite of the whip on their back or the pinch of clamps on their nipples. Is it normal? For some, yes. For others, no. Again, it depends on your perception of normality. Mainstream Western culture would also consider any type submission in males or females weird or not normal, because most of the population now consider males and females equal in most settings. They ask, why would one person want to give over any freedoms, allow anyone else to make any decisions for them, or submit to another person's will? They don't understand the sense of security, need of serving, and feelings of yearning to be dominated and or owned by another individual. I don't mean in a creepy, stalker, or his kind of way. For most submissives or slaves in the lifestyle, they will tell you that they find more freedom and happiness in being owned, being given rules and regulations, having to follow certain standards and guidelines, than they do in typical or vanilla relationships. I consider a BDSM lifestyle normal because I chose to practice this type of lifestyle as a consensual slave. Whether my padrone, master, is with me or not, I always follow his guidelines and rules. I gain extreme satisfaction and peace of mind and spirit by the rules and guidelines he has set for me. I have a very deep sense of love and protection all the time, and that gives me a happiness that is almost indescribable. So, is BDSM normal? Yes and no. Since normality is relative, you have to decide.